Hey Trish, you're gonna have to unmute.
Ta-da!
All right, I don't see any video for you.
Hang on a second.
Okay.
I had you set it all up so I could use my computer. And then I remembered my computer camera doesn't work.
More than me, so.
Okay.
Well,
Does it, did it work? Did it work a second ago? You have no idea. Okay.
and I've got Bruce sitting here, so we're gonna be critiqued.
All right.
But what the heck? Well, it's good to see you.
Good to see you
And
too. Long time no
yeah,
see.
yeah. In case anybody wants to know, this is the Virgin flight for Pitbull Politics, and supposedly we are live streaming. But I don't know for sure what exactly is for sure going on. So we'll find out here really quickly. This is an experiment. It is a lesson that somebody that's older than dirt can apparently learn a lot of stuff about tech she didn't think she could in a very short period of time. But so there's something interesting that's been happening because we've had or we're going to have a regime change. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much it's actually going to affect us because supposedly Kennedy Jr. is going to be bringing about a lot of changes that, if he's allowed to, could benefit us, especially regarding jabs and everything else. But I'm curious if you think that we're going to see much change or what changes you do believe are coming in the medical realm that should maybe be we should be watching for in January. What do you think?
Well, hang on a second. Echo!
No.
You hear the echo?
I do not.
Okay, that's good. Um, that makes a very good echo. Um, anyways, uh, let's see. What changes are coming? I don't know exactly what is coming. There is, a lot of mixed information out there
Kidding.
about not just RFK Jr., but all the other people that are being, selected for the top spots. Um, so I can't say I know what's coming.
Well, I saw
Don't.
that somebody from one of the big Ivy League schools is been nominated as well, and that scares me a little bit because there's so much of the COVID crap and the research grants and stuff that go through the Ivy League schools. And as we always know, when we follow the money, it doesn't always have anything to do with health. It oftentimes has a lot to do with
Money.
money. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's not just money. I think as we look at, what has happened with COVID and stuff, there's guilt. Um, so I think that it's not just money per se as a what can we earn, but also a how do we need to cover our ass um, thing going forward that's affecting a lot of the medical interactions and changes that we see. Um, I guess just to dive right in, I I have had the pleasure of visiting the ER room a number of times in the last few years for a variety of family members. And I have been just on the other side of the curtain um, and heard the ER doctors tell patients, young men that come into the ER with chest pain and are not sick in any particular way, and have the doctor say, "Oh, it's just inflammation," or "You just must have a cold," or "Take an Advil." if it's inflammation and you take an Advil, that's an anti-inflammatory and it makes you feel better, then that's all it is, and you don't need to worry about it anymore. Um, and I see that is a uh, measured response on their part.
It's interesting
They
you say that, Trish, because um, we discovered that a couple of doctors that we know, one's got a very young guy, he's not even 50, he's in his mid 40s. He just got fitted out with a pacemaker. The other doctor had blood clots removed. And at that clinic that we go to, they're no longer, shall we just say, as vehemently recommending certain medications and stuff as they did before, including flu shots and other things. They're just saying, do you want one? And if you say no, it's like, okay. And they're moving on. Where before there was the pressure tactics for everything, and the drawer of the desk would open up and magic little sample packs would pop out.
right.
I'm seeing a lot less of that just occurring right now.
Well, and I can say personally also, we had an interaction recently where the secretary at the clinic told us that if our child did not become up to date on their injections, that they would no longer be able to receive medical care.
Excuse
Um,
me?
and that's illegal. That's downright illegal. That'd be one situation where I really wished I was one of those people that recorded all my phone calls. Um, so it's just my word against theirs. But I did talk to the nurse who backed off. Oh no, we didn't mean that. And I talked to the doctor who was very concerned. Oh no, that we can't do that. And I think it's very important for people to know that your doctor can tell you, hey, this is available. Here's the benefits for it. And if you don't like it, that's okay. And they didn't used to have that approach. It used to be, this is what you have to do. Everybody
Yes.
does it. How
You're,
dare you do
yes,
something,
there you go. You're a bad person if you don't. You're going to
right?
kill everybody around you.
Right. I even had a dentist once tell me that if I didn't agree to fluoride treatments for my children, that he would report me to the state for child abuse. And again, that's not legal. You can't do that. Saying I don't
No.
want you to put fluoride on my children's teeth because I can prove to you with medical research that it makes them stupider and it doesn't help their teeth. Um, because while there is fluoride in your teeth, you don't actually use fluoride to build teeth. You use something called hydroxyapatite, which is similar but different. Um, it's just, the things in your body are like puzzle pieces. And if what you need to build teeth isn't the exact right shape for that puzzle piece slot, it doesn't work. And to say, well, it's got a square blob on it is fine if you need but you need a square blob and a triangular blob for it to work. When you talk about cell structures, then it doesn't work. Um, so the medical industry has kind of rolled back some of its uh, um, the fierceness with which they went after people for disagreeing with them, but they're still covering their asses
Well,
because
I think you
ones that
mentioned I think you mentioned an important point though, and that is you have the right of refusal. And
yes.
too many people believe they don't.
Well, I don't even know that people um, realize that there's a choice. I mean, I
Yeah.
certainly didn't. When I was a new mom and it was time for my kids' checkup, I got them all of their. I did everything the doctor said. I did absolutely everything the doctor said, and I never started to question it until my child had a fever of, I want to say, 103, and I took my child to the ER, and the doctor at the ER gave my child ibuprofen. Well, I have ibuprofen at home.
Yeah.
And so for them to say, well, yes, on the bottle it says to give your child X ibuprofen, and here we are at the ER, you're paying me a minimum of $100 to say, Well, we're just going to give them a little bit more. I don't need to pay $100 for that. I have ibuprofen at home. And that was the point where I personally started to question things. But then with COVID, the vast majority of people still don't question anything. And we have this idea that um, all doctors and all people in authority are good people. And it's not that they're not good people. It's that no one person can know everything. And if they are busy all day long seeing patients and taking care of stuff, I mean, that's why we have specialties in medicine. There's plastic surgeons, and plastic surgeons have specialties within. There's people that specialize in noses or other things because you can't know everything. And so for your general doctor, your MD that is running your clinic and doing wellness checks and stuff, to expect them to know all the details of all the medical research about every medicine, they don't do that. They even have an app. They just ask the app what medicine goes for this thing. They don't know it themselves, because there's just so much to know.
Well, this happened even before the event, as I like to call it, and that is there's specific kickbacks
Yes.
for getting so many vaccinations into so many arms or so many pills into so many bodies and other things where you have to hit a threshold. We used to do this in sales. We called them spiffs. If you sold so many, you got a bonus. If you sold so many more, you got a bigger bonus. And it was a tiered thing. And when I discovered they were doing this with medicine, I went, that's not right.
Yeah. Just like there's a website called Open Secrets for your government officials to show what the kickbacks they've gotten from certain places are. There's another one for medical doctors. See if I can get to it from my phone. Then you can look up the same thing for your medical doctors to see what kickbacks they've gotten. However, it doesn't cover everything, just like Open Secrets doesn't cover everything. Um, but it's something that can be helpful, I guess, to at least know which um, organizations your doctor has been in contact with. Hang on a second.
It's so funny because I remember I was talking to a friend who was at Rochester Clinic, the Mayo Clinic, and he said he was sitting in the waiting room and he was watching the doctors and flow because he was waiting for someone. And he said the pharmaceutical sales reps would come in and the doctors would run just like kids in a candy store, and we're like hovering over the pharmaceutical reps, like, oh. He said because you could tell they were getting all kinds of goodies and things, and it was just like the guy from the candy store showed up and like, what have you got for me today? And there's something wrong about that when you're dealing with medicine and people's lives.
There is. And the link that I had didn't work, so something's changed with it. But
Surprise.
when I looked up our local, I know. When I looked up our local doctors at the time, it was like they had received, $150 of food from Pfizer in the last year. Well, that means Pfizer took them out to eat. That doesn't mean a whole lot more than that. Although $150 is a lot for food in the middle of nowhere, North Dakota.
Well, it is, but here's the thing. I actually in a galaxy long ago, far, far away, applied to be a pharmaceutical sales rep. This was when I wasn't sure what was going on or anything else like that. And the one thing I knew about pharmaceutical sales was really good money,
Yeah.
excellent money. And I was being interviewed by this guy, and he said, you're going to be getting a credit card, and it's going to have, and it was an astronomical amount at that time. It was in the 80s. And he said, and you're going to be required to spend that every month whining and dining the doctors, their wives, whatever. He goes, in fact, if you don't spend that much, we're going to feel that you're not doing your job. And my jaw just went, because it was well over $1,000 back in the 80s. And I'm supposed to spend that in a month to tell all of these medical people about the beauty of these pharmaceutical things that I was going to be selling to them and stuff. And I went, okay, now segue to earlier, to now, and I'm going, I just sat there in stunned silence, like, I'm supposed to spend how much? And
Right.
now, of course, it's 30, 40 years later, and I'm going, I see. And I can't even begin to imagine what it must have been like 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Well, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, there was a bill about vaccines put forth with the North Dakota legislature. And one of the people who testified was Dr. Bob from Minnesota. There's videos of him out there presenting this information, so it's not like it's lost just somewhere in the depths of the North Dakota
You may
thing.
have to dig for it though, because it's cleverly hidden, but
Well, you can go to Just a Mom at Telegram, or excuse me, Just the Facts at Telegram. Um, and anyways, the point is, 4 years ago, if as a physician you did not meet the requirement that they have about having, I want to say it's 70% of your patients be fully vaccinated, then you were missing out on $1 million a year.
excuse me?
Uh-huh. And it's
Big houses.
that's not even including the change that you get for the insurance premiums and stuff. That's just straight up kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies. Once you get to that level, then your insurance rates go down and you get more kickbacks. And I mean, not to be, I'll admit I'm petty. If you drive past the doctor's house in town, you can tell they got it.
But I remember when you couldn't advertise pharmaceuticals. You couldn't run an ad or anything. And now, one of the things that I did when I was talking to my students, I don't know if you know, but you're okay. When I was talking to my students, I said, all right, here's what I want you to do. When you're watching network TV or whatever, sit there with a little piece of paper and just do a hashtag every time there's a medical ad on, whether it's for insurance, medical insurance, RX, whatever. And within an hour, see how many times you put a hashtag down. Because you have to understand that advertising by its very nature is pound, 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 pound. And therefore
Yeah.
it's repetition. And if
Uh-huh.
within a certain amount of time, you're getting literally bombarded
Yeah.
by things. And my favorite is still the one where it was, I don't remember the actual name of the drug, but I remember them saying, when you go to your doctor, ask him if you could use the little purple pill. You didn't even know what was wrong with you, but when you went to the doctor, you were supposed to ask if you needed the little purple pill. This is what we've become.
Well, and they have done studies on people. How much repetition does it take to make a person unable to think for themselves? They've figured it out. That's why we have so much repetition. That's why people can't get past these things, because they're constantly bombarded with, you need this, you need this, you need this, you need this. And because we live in a society where you can just go to the store for food, like that, the need that I need, the innate desire to hunt and gather something to make myself better is totally fulfilled for your body. So you still have that. Still have a need to go get the right thing and bring it home. And they've taken what would be, taking care of your body and given it to all these drugs.
Interesting, because part of the reason I wanted to do this is it just came about that drugs like Wegovy, Ozempic would be covered by Medicare and Medicaid under a new Biden proposal, strictly for weight loss. Now, these were originally designed for type 2 diabetes, but they were
Yep.
found that they would cause a certain percentage of weight loss. And of course, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is an outspoken opponent of weight loss drugs. I don't know if anybody still remembers fen-phen.
Oh yeah.
that little debacle that caused heart damage. Well, the problem with all of these drugs is the fact that these drugs don't differentiate between fat and muscle. So if you're losing 10% of your body weight, you're not losing just 10% of fat. You're losing a
Mhm.
portion of that as muscle. Now, people will say, well, I can develop biceps or whatever. Your heart's a muscle, people. So I'm waiting for this to
Yes.
really determine heart attacks again.
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily going to cause heart attacks, but I do know that any weight loss, because I've been down that road. You're blessed with the ability to not have to go down that road.
Right?
I don't have those genetics. Um, any weight loss that you do is you're going to lose muscle and fat. And like you can focus on the exercise that you do. Walking burns fat, running burns muscle. Um, that's why runners are skinny. Um, bulking up on weights that builds muscle, but that, in order to just straight up lose weight, I don't change any of my habits. I just go on a diet. I am going to lose muscle and fat. And as far as if I started out as someone who was 500 pounds, and I lose a third of that, I'm not going to need as much muscle in my body to move myself around. So that particular data point, I mean, I get it that you're potentially causing a decrease in muscle that you might need, but you also might just be naturally losing the muscle. And that's the thing with these weight loss drugs. They have been around for more than 10 years for type 2 diabetes. But as far as a just weight loss drug, it's been what, 2, 3 years? And either 10 years or 3 years, none of those are long enough to say, hey, this isn't going to give you a problem in 40 years. But one of the things that's interesting about not just that drug, but also a lot of the drugs that are covered by insurance is that our insurance companies aren't covering them this next
Yes,
year.
they're expensive. They're sometimes $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
Right. And I mean, the weight loss drugs, yes, they're very expensive, but they're also, if you lose 100 pounds, you're not going to need your other medications that you needed to get through the day. You may not need your sleeping medicine. You may not need your antidepressant. You may not need, an autoimmune disorder medicine. There's all kinds of things that you may no longer need to purchase from the pharmaceutical company because you purchased this one really expensive thing. So they're taking those off of the covered list for private insurance because it's just costing them money. It's costing them money to pay for it, and it's costing them money because it's making you healthier so that you don't need all these other things. But
The one thing this is heart surgeon Dr. Philip Ovat, and he came out and posted, Ozempic doesn't just eat fat, it eats muscle too. Your heart is a muscle. If you are considering this drug, ask your doctor, what will we do to protect my heart tissue while I am taking this drug? If you get a good answer, let me know. This is a guy
well,
that makes his money by repairing hearts.
the good answer is to exercise. I mean, that's if you take someone who's 500 pounds and has a swollen heart that is working very hard just to keep that person alive, and they lose a third of that weight, and they go and they exercise, they're exercising their hearts and their lungs. Their heart is going to get smaller because it's going to lose the fat that was mixed in with their muscle. Um, so that's part of it. The muscle itself may get smaller because it simply doesn't need to work as hard to move a 500-pound body. Um, so yes, that's the whole thing is it's unknown. These drugs haven't been out there that long. There are lots of people out there saying this is so horrible. But then there are also people who are saying, okay, I know that you're telling me it's horrible, but I've never been healthier. And nobody knows exactly how that's going to play out in another 15 years.
Yes, I have with it is, of course, it's going to now be free on Medicare and Medicaid to take these drugs. And we all know what free means. And they say that there's going to be guidelines, et cetera. But basically, it says the rule would give millions of people access to weekly injectables. It would cost taxpayers as much as $35 billion over the next decade.
Okay.
Uh,
Wait, that might then decrease the amount that they spend on their welfare food. I don't know.
because as you said, I'm blessed with good genetics. I may be blessed with genetics, but to counter that, I also work my old arse off.
I know, I
I
know.
mean, I mean,
I
there it's not just that I'm able to skip down the lane going, oh, get in, you're not. I mean, I spend usually a minimum of 30 minutes a day doing cardio, sometimes hour or more in a weight room. I'm trying now to get to alternating days. I was going 6 days a week, which was, I'm 69 years old. Something has to give. But people just, to me, we become I need to take a pill for that society.
Okay, one, you're not wrong about I need to take a pill for that. But Kit, when I was at my thinnest about 4 years ago, I exercised 3 hours every single day.
Well,
And
I
if
can
I'm
tell you what you were
exercising
doing
three
wrong
hours,
there, but
if I'm not exercising 3 hours every day, I'm not able to be a size 8. It's just not going to happen for me.
how
So,
much do you think this has to do with, as Kennedy Jr. says, our food supply?
well, for me personally, I eat organic stuff and I cook my own food. So, regardless of whether or not I'm exercising 3 hours a day or not, I'm still eating actually approximately the same. And it's healthy. I avoid all these things, but you're not wrong. If you look at what um, food is covered by welfare, right? It's not organic fruits and vegetables. It's Doritos and soda pop and crap. Um, so to provide the people that are eating this horrible food with the shot that diminishes the effect at the same time. Um, I don't know that it's the best solution. It would be better to have healthier food.
You
But
know, it
just
used to be healthy. They didn't used to allow the crap. You had to buy that with your own money. And then,
yeah,
of course, that was unfair.
that's right. Like everything else.
So when it went from welfare and food stamps to entitlement, and they kept telling people, well, you should be able to have the hot dogs and the rollers and everything. And I'm just sitting there going, I thought the purpose of this was to give them nutritious food until they
No,
could get back up on their feet so then they could purchase for themselves.
yeah. One thing I haven't looked into is, I mean, I have looked into what are the negative effects of the chemicals that are in our food, right? Like, I mean, RFK Jr. has this commercial out that's just totally convincing. Yellow food coloring is actually totally poison. I mean, I showed it to my husband. He was like, stopped what he was doing, went to the fridge, started reading all the labels, and threw things in the trash. It's very convincing, and it's true. But there must be research out there. I just don't know it to say that in addition to having these things be unhealthy for you, there's something addictive going on with the food
You can't
supply.
eat one Cheeto. And who eats one Cheeto? I mean,
It's just there's just that's there's more to it. It's not just an issue of unhealthiness. It's an issue of addiction and all kinds of additional aspects. Um, you know, it's the difficulty with food addiction is that you can't just quit it. You can't just not have food in your house. Um, and that's something that a lot of people don't understand, but actually a lot of people deal with. Even people that deal with it don't understand it. Because you have to have food, it's hard to understand that you need to have food and you can also have a food addiction.
we help though because we've eliminated physical education primarily in the schools. We our hot lunch program is a disgrace.
Yeah.
We know, and if a kid packs a lunch nowadays, it's almost considered child abuse. And of course, the big push that's on right now is free lunch for everybody. So
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems to me that all of this is meshing the diet drugs, the additives in the foods, the
Yeah.
convenience of you don't have to work at it. Just take this pill. And the other thing they don't tell you much about some of these drugs is the fact that if you are taking them, you're on them for life. The minute you stop taking them because you have not changed your habits, you're going to go right
Well,
back where you were.
and that's another thing. People should take them with the intent of, I am going to use this to teach myself how to be better. But that's not how it's marketed. And people don't have self-control in general. There was an interesting study once where they put people in a room and they put cookies on the table. And they told people, you have to not talk for 2 hours. And then they put people in another room, no cookies on the table. You still have to not talk for 2 hours. And the people that had the cookies could not talk for 2 hours. But the people who did not have the cookies couldn't do it. And the reason that they did a variety of experiments like that, but the outcome of the psychological research was that you only have so much self-control. And you have a self-control bank account. When you spend it on this, you don't have it or whatever else. And especially when we're filling our society with, you can't say that, you can't have that opinion, you must keep your mouth shut all the time. That uses up a lot of our self-control. It really does.
I'm sure there's a pill for that, but
Well, there is. And of all of the things that they're taking away from private insurance, for medical prescription coverage,
it's
they are
really bad.
not antidepressants, anti-anxiety medicines, any of that.
Thing with that order.
Not right now. Thank you.
That was the present.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm concerned about is the fact that we've made it so easy. We're rewarding the medical personnel for handing out the drugs. I've rarely gone into a doctor's office without leaving with free sample packs of something for something I didn't even know I needed. I would assume that someone counts the packs. I don't know. But I'm with the free Medicare and Medicaid and all of the, I mean, they're paying for in many places transgender operations and everything else. The medical field has, it was first do no harm.
Oh yeah, it's not anymore. Although I will say that from what I looked at, a lot of the transgender drugs, like the puberty blockers and stuff, those are not being covered anymore, at least for private health insurance. So that's a step in the right direction. And
Go ahead.
I think that's probably a good example of what's going to happen going forward, right? You asked that the question at the beginning.
Yep.
We expect, and it's going to be a combination of this is stupid and that's a good thing. And it's not going to be all good things and it's not going to be all bad things. And we're going to have to say, well, I guess that's better.
This kind of really dark path because it's all kind of related. And yes, this is not the United States, but it's happening right north of us, and it's just kicked into gear in the United Kingdom. And what it is they're targeting elderly citizens with state-sponsored euthanasia. The push for legalized euthanasia has reached the British shores.
Yeah.
Canada's monstrous euthanasia program should serve as a warning. But what we're seeing is this huge dynamic push for
Yes.
people to, well, you've lived long enough. You need to make room for everybody else now.
The one that they've put through in Britain is that if you have 6 months to live. So it's not based on age. It's just if you have 6 months to live. And
started that way in Canada.
Right. I think that that's going to be used for, and I don't have proof. I think that that's going to be used for all of these people that are put in prison for, praying. I was praying in my house, and my neighbor reported that I was praying, and I was put in jail for a non-crime hate offense, you know? And then after I've been in jail for a few months, they say, well, hey, you could stay here. Or, if you'd like to talk to the doctor about the fact that you might commit suicide in the next 6 months, we'll be just happy to help you with that right now. Um,
I mean,
I
in
really think,
Canada,
yeah, I think it's not going to be just a health thing. I think it's going to be a um, used to as a part of the great replacement theory, if you will.
there's a story that I was listening to. This lady was a veteran from the sandbox, and she was paralyzed from the waist down. And what she
Mhm.
wanted was she wanted to have some help using military loans and stuff to get her house remodeled because it was very difficult for her to move around in her wheelchair and stuff. And the person that she went to try to help, supposedly she thought, to try to help her with arranging loans and stuff to get her house remodeled, suggested that maybe what her real problem was she was just depressed and upset with life, and it would be really nice to use the maid services. And the maid is such a wonderful name for assisted suicide in Canada. And she was, quite rightfully so, livid. And the person couldn't understand her anger. She said, well, you obviously don't want to live anymore, and your house isn't sufficient for you.
So let's kill you. That's a good plan.
It seems to be the path we're going down, and they're finding something new to scare everybody with every doggone day. Bird flu,
Yes.
remember monkeypox, my personal favorite. I mean, they keep bringing these up, and there's just enough of the sheeple to go racing off the cliff, saying, "Fill my arm or my stomach or what with whatever you've got. Just save me."
Yeah, and we're as we fill our food with chemicals, right? Something that was really interesting that happened during COVID in North Dakota was that they opened the floodgates on pesticide and herbicide use for farmers.
Yes, they
You
did.
previously had to go through some tests, prove that you were using them in the right way and renew your licenses and stuff. And because that required showing up somewhere in person, they just canceled all of that. And to the best of my knowledge, they haven't put it back. So, I mean, even just something as simple, again, not in the United States yet, but it's in the Laughing Cow brand and the Anchor brand,
Yes, it
um,
is.
is the fart elimination feed for all ruminants. So, goats, sheep, cows, all of these animals are being given this new diet with, surprise, surprise, cancer causing supplies so that these animals won't have methane in their gut. Well, first of all, methane is part of the fermentation system that they use to digest their food. Without that, how are they going to digest their food and not die? In addition, that one was particularly unique because it causes breathing problems and eye irritation. And then the next thing that it can cause to you if you've been exposed to it enough is testicular and penile damage. And I just like, really? That's what we're doing?
You that right?
Huh?
That's a Bill Gates project. He came up with the vaccine. He came up with the vaccine that they're going to be giving all these animals now that will save us. Again, save us.
Yeah, I think they decided that just to put it in their food was easier.
Well, I have to think, quite frankly, what else is going into our food. It's called Bovaer, Bovaer 10. It's a feed additive for ruminants to prevent methane production in the digestive system.
Yep.
And yeah, you can thank Bill Gates for this bad boy. Wasn't Bill Gates also behind Appeal?
Yes. So
Think of what Appeal is.
appeal is a food coating especially for like bananas or avocados. And a peel, it's kind of like a plastic. It sticks to your fruit. It's supposed to help it stay fresh longer. But again, it's a cancer-causing agent, and it does soak into the flesh of the fruit. So yes, you can take off the peel of your avocado, but there's no real study or information available to the public as to how much of the peel is going through the peel and into the fruit that you're eating.
And
But
it's
again, one thing I haven't seen in our stores. Granted, North Dakota is kind of off the beaten path. It might be in California or something, and I just don't know about it.
I know it's in the United States already, but the thing that worries me is something you said earlier too, which is we're not going to know the results of a lot of this stuff
No,
for
no,
for years because there's all we have is anecdotal evidence based on the fact that some mice had an
right?
issue and we're going to wait and find out. It's like the gift that won't stop giving because
Well,
at that point, then what?
the thing is, there is information out there, and there are doctors and medical scientists out there who are doing the work. Um, for example, with the COVID vaccine, if you guys remember, there were those skinny, white, long, stringy blood clots that
Yep,
embalmers were finding. Right.
yep,
They were
the
super
gray
gross.
ones. Yeah.
Um, so they have found out now that those contain amylin and fibrin. Now, fibrin is something that you can run a test for. If you're having chest pain, your doctor should be doing a D-dimer fibrin test on you, but they're not. Instead, they're saying, well, we could test, but just take some Advil. Um, and the when you if you're just having heart pain and you're not at the point of having blood clots yet, you could do that test to find out if you're having microclots. But they won't do it because they won't face the fact that they fucked everybody over, pardon my French.
It was less than 100 people back in the 70s when they came out with the new swine flu shot that
Yeah,
got sick during the medical trials for the military, and they shut
yeah.
that bad boy down.
I mean, like, just look at salmonella poisoning. My lettuce got salmonella poisoning. 5 people from my Walmart had stomach distress. So they took out the lettuce from that brand all over the country. Nobody died. Some people had diarrhea. We don't apply anywhere near the same standard to our medicines because the pharmaceutical industries are paying our politicians, paying our regulatory agencies, paying our doctors way more than any local farmer is.
To me, because it used to be, you mentioned the fact you can't avoid food, and I understand that. And so do they, because you don't have to take the pills. You don't have to take the medicine if you don't wish. But how do you not eat?
Right. And that's where it's, get the people, you can't take that away. Right. And so use the food system, which feeds an innate part of that you can't ignore, to cause you psychological distress, emotional, that same thing, psychological distress, physical distress, just even to keep you from sleeping well. That has just this layered effect that affects all the world around you, and you can't. It's hard to fight back against. I mean, it really is. We have friends who are very focused on only eating locally sourced, homegrown food from sources that they trust. And that is where all of their money goes. They often, live in a small house, have a small car. They're not, you know, a wealth, but they are protecting the health of their children and spending at least half, if not more, of their income on just providing healthy food, because it is so hard to find healthy food that it is from a source that you trust. I mean, I've talked to the person I get our beef from. Yes, it's locally grown. Yes, they're nice people, but they still vaccinate their cows, and they do it on a smaller scale. but they do everything that they're supposed to.
Yep.
So while it's local and all that, I don't know that it's any better. It tastes better, but it didn't go to China.
It's the thing that just concerns me is we are going to be being bombarded with both sides.
Yeah,
And and people are going to have to learn how to make some difficult choices, some of which will be including saying they were wrong. Whether it's about the fact that the stuff, the chemicals are bad, or the fact that the chemicals aren't bad, or whatever. But the question is, when you can't trust your medical, when you're concerned about the food source, and now, bless their little hearts, they're scaring everybody about the water because
yeah.
they're telling everybody this is we have got lead pipes. This is a letter that we got from one of the cities where we have houses, and it says, until your house has been tested, it is recommended that you, sitting down here, use only cold tap water for cooking and drinking, and flush the pipes for at least 3 minutes before using that water.
That's a little bit of a waste of money and water and time, but also,
Smart meters, especially, because every teaspoon of this stuff from these smart meters is.
yeah, it's that's it's very ridiculous. Um, the thing is, with the lead
Extra
pipes,
word here. I'm reading this letter we got word for word, and it's not just worried about lead. It said if there's any galvanizing
yeah.
on your what's galvanized pipes are bad. I mean, this has gotten ridiculous.
Well, the thing with the pipes is there was a letter that went out like a year ago that said if you don't have lead pipes, you have to tell us. Because if you don't tell us, we're going to assume that you have lead pipes, and then we're going to force you to let the government in to change out your lead pipes. So this is all part of that scheme of taking, it's not just about scaring you, it's about trying to convince you to let the government to take over your house.
We had a couple of renters call us just in a panic. Do we have lead pipes? We went, no, no, you're fine. You have copper. You're good. Everything's just ratchet it down a little bit. These were late 20, early 30 somethings, and they were just having the vapors. And
Yes.
Bruce and I just looked at each other and went, are you kidding me? Everything is just off the charts. You need this pill. You need to eat this diet, keto, macro, what I mean, you must, you must, you must. No one's being allowed to literally make an educated decision anymore. In fact, they're not even worried about it. They're just absorbing all of this.
Yeah.
Why do they think we're crazy? I
Well,
mean,
they're making it that way on purpose. I mean, they're doing it to us, right? The more there's a famous painting. I want to say it's Saint Francis. It's some Catholic guy. I don't remember. Anyways, maybe it's John, and he's held up in the air. It's black and white, and he's got all of these demons that are attacking him from every angle, right? And that's what they're doing to us. They're attacking us from every angle because then we're so busy we don't have time to stop and go, whoa, what did you say? Okay, that doesn't make any sense. Explain it to me like I'm dumb. And people don't do that. They don't stop and say, whoa. They react the way everyone else around them acts. And, a lot of parents, a lot of adults these days were raised by parents who were not very good at parenting. And then you become a parent who's not very good at parenting. And your kids become adults that aren't very good at adulting because you don't know how to be calm about a situation and think it through. The more we take away kids from their parents, the more we deprive them of what they need emotionally to grow up feeling safe. And then we put them in a school where they are required to conform. I mean, when you are in a room full of 8-year-olds and you're 8, you're going to do whatever all the other people are doing. You're If you do something different, you're going to stand out like you wouldn't believe. And then people aren't going to like you. I mean, there aren't very many people who are going to say, as an 8-year-old, that's wrong. I don't care if my friends don't like me anymore because that's wrong. And to ask 8-year-olds to do that is ridiculous.
Wait a minute, Trish. 8-year-olds are being able to decide their gender now.
Okay. And their
I'm just
parents,
saying.
the parents are getting money from the federal government so that their kids pick a different gender. So the kids aren't picking a different gender at all. The teachers and the parents are picking it for them so that the teachers and the parents can get money from the federal government. None of those 8-year-olds or 3-year-olds or whatever are actually picking it for themselves.
I just think that the whole medical system has gone bananas, and if you aren't paying attention, if you aren't questioning, and I know trust the science, you'll have to forgive me, but if you aren't at least when you're sitting in that doctor's office, I used to tell my students, just remember, let's say a medical class of 500 graduates. Somebody still graduated 500th. How do
Yeah,
you know that's not your doctor?
right. I saw a thing the other day, and it said, would you rather be on an airplane with a DEI pilot or on a surgery table with a DEI surgeon? Like,
Believe it
and
was.
it's not just DEI anymore, it's AI too. You can use Chat GPT and all those for everything. I mean, that's the whole thing about Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. What they're trying to do to streamline the government is they're going to switch it to an AI system. So, I mean, just like I have a problem with my Amazon order. I think we can all relate to that. Instead of talking to a person, you're going to have to talk to the AI assistant
Yep.
at the Department of whatever, the Department of the Interior run by Doug Burgum, or the Department of Health and Human Services. For everything, you're going to have to go through an AI chat bot. And you're going to have to learn how to convince the chat bot that you actually need to speak to a person. And then once you actually speak to a person, you're still going to have to wait 6 months for them to get back to you because there are going to be so few people who are actually employed to do the job. There's going to be a long waiting list. It's going to be just like healthcare in Britain.
Throw this out there. When retiring in 2022, Fauci boasted the highest salary of any federal employee, over $400,000 annually. His golden parachute includes a taxpayer-funded security detail at the cost of $15 million, and as revealed by the watchdog group Open the Books, hidden royalties from pharmaceutical companies. These revelations paint a damning picture of a man and a system that enriches itself at the expense of the American people. And I always say the rot starts at the top, not the bottom. And if
Oh.
these are the people that are setting up the system, should we be surprised at what we're getting here?
Well, I mean, if you just look at the Navy, the person who drives the boat, captain, I don't remember, who was a DEI hire that crashed the aircraft carrier into the shoreline.
It
I
wasn't an
mean,
aircraft carrier, but it was a boat. Yes, and
yeah,
and yes,
it
she
was a boat.
she
I don't
she did a
remember what it
marvelous
was.
job of ruining a multi-million-dollar craft. She didn't just ding it; she totaled it.
Well, and I mean, the route starts at the top, but then you look at, I just saw a thing recently about the Navy that our Navy boats are no longer able to treat the rust on the boat because treating the rust on the boat utilizes chemicals that the state of California doesn't allow. And most of our boats are stored in California. And to have a seaman go over the edge of the boat on their lines, with the harness and all that, that's not safe. So if you look at our boats visually, they are rusting. They look awful. And that's because the rot from the top, somebody said, well, it would be bad for the environment if we actually let our boats not rust in the sea. So let's let them rust, first of all. And then, on top of the rust, let's make sure that our sailors are so safe they can't actually do their job.
I know is I can't remember if it was Harvard Medical School. I believe it was. It was one of those large ones, and it was over half of the medical students weren't passing.
Yeah.
They couldn't pass the basics, but they were still allowed to continue because they were DEI.
Yeah.
So the next time you're in a doctor's office, connect the dots. Connect the
Well,
dots because you may be getting number 500 and he may not have or she may not have even deserved to be there.
you need to be your own advocate. You got to do your own research. I mean, I would even go so far to say, as if you're going to have children, you should let your wife not work a job so she can bust her ass researching shit, because that's how much time it's going to take. You can't count on somebody else to do it for you. You have to do it yourself, and you have to actually dig through, medical articles and legal articles and pull out your dictionary and learn new words so that you can figure out what's going on.
One thing I learned when I was working with my mom after her stroke and I was her advocate is getting them to listen. You got to make sure they know you mean business.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to back them up a little bit because they'll try to snowball you and just roll right over you, and you got to go hold it.
Yes. And you got to know which number you can call, because we had a problem with potentially Medicare fraud with someone that was providing care for my mother. And the first, I went straight to the head of the state Health and Human Services organization. I called them. The very next day, the facility changed their tune. All of a sudden, it was, oh, no, 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 sorry, we were mistaken. Because people don't know, just like with vaccines. I don't have to vaccinate my children. It's my choice. I have chosen that if my children want to get vaccinated, they can choose that for themselves when they're adults. There's nothing wrong with making them wait. If it's so great for them, then if it was so necessary, they'd die, which they're not dying, obviously. There are hundreds and more people, thousands of people every day that are choosing not to vaccinate. But if it's so great when they get to be adults, it'll be proven to be great, and then they can choose it for themselves. But you have to know who above you can talk to. You can't just do the research yourself. You have to know who you can talk to say, this person broke the law, so that they stop doing it. Because people need to, I mean, not everybody knows. People don't.
Basically, what we've kind of uncovered is things may change, things may not. But the one thing that you can do is you can say no.
Yeah. And if you don't know,
Wait.
say wait. Right. And that was the first time that we decided that we weren't going to continue with all of the vaccinations for our child. We asked our doctor if we could wait. And they said, if you don't do it on schedule, then we're just not doing it at all. At which point I said, well, okay, I guess I'll wait. I think I'll wait some more then. Because
Like a hostage situation.
Huh?
It sounded like a hostage situation.
Right. It's like, I'm either going to give my child 80 vaccines by the time they're 10, or I'm going to give them 0. And I've already seen how the 80 hurt my kids. So let's try a different route. I mean, like waiting is always an option. Just wait, see how it goes. I mean, it's not like somebody's bleeding out on the floor right in front of you and you're saying, well, I think I'll wait until all the blood is on the floor. But it's not like that at all. Just wait.
Because you're going against the grain. But I've rarely run into too many people that have said that they've waited for something and regretted it. I've talked to a lot more people that jumped without looking and then had to pay that price. Well, thanks for being my very first show. I'm hoping that when this is over with, we got something more than just us two, but I'm learning fast. And the other good thing is thanks to everybody that sees this, not only thank you to Trish, but I have hundreds, literally hundreds of people that are sending me show ideas, names, people to contact. So that helps prove to me that there is a need out there for us to continue with this type of service by reaching out and talking about things that people don't ordinarily feel very comfortable speaking about, whether it's because of censorship or it's just not a popular topic or whatever. And so we'll be back definitely. And I'm going to be going through a bunch of my emails and things because there are some fun things that people have slid under the door and said, "Hey, Kit, take a look at this." And I've gone, "Oh my God." So I'm thinking it's going to be fun. I really do. And I'm looking forward to doing way more shows, of course, more shows with you and with everybody else. But I just want to thank everybody for helping me transition from one phase of my life into another. And again, we're at Pitbull Politics Live. No more Common Sense Uncensored. We're just as uncensored here as we were at the other place, but we have a little more freedom. So, Trish, thank you so much. I am so happy to see you this way. And everybody who's out there watching, as always, thanks for tuning in and God bless. Bye.